Okay, back to the dinim of, or customs of Bris Milah. So it says that there's a mitzvah, it's called a Sudas mitzvah, to have a Suda at the Bris Milah. Ideally, in halacha it says you should have meat, because it's really a Sudas mitzvah. But bottom line is, practically speaking, people, when they make a bris in the morning, they don't serve meat because it's not the time of eating meat. So they serve fish or whatever. But in halacha, but very few people do that today, mamish, to serve meat when it's early in the morning, the bris. They don't do it. But it should be actually a whole su'udah with washing and, people making ametzi and so on and so forth. What? Because good things, you have a suda. Like you have a Yom Tov, a suda, Shabbos, you have a meal. Wedding, you have a meal. When there's mitzvahs, it's joyous. The Gemara tells a story that David HaMelech was in the mikveh and he was without clothes on. So he realized he was very depressed because he didn't have any mitzvahs. No tzitzis, no tefillin. He didn't have anything on him. He felt naked of mitzvahs. And then he realized that he has bris milah. He was circumcised. Even though David HaMelech was born circumcised, but he had a toughest on bris. So he had what it was called the bris milah. And therefore the pasuk that we say in fact before shofar blowing, Sas anechi al imrasecha. Sas means I have sas v'sameach. I rejoice on the word that you said, Kameitze shalol rav, like one who found a great treasure. And the Gemara says, that pasuk David HaMelech said when he realized that he had a bris milah, so he wasn't naked for mitzvahs. By the way, from there it's an interesting thing. The Rogat Shavar proves in that Gemara that bris milah is not something you do once and it's done. It's what's called pu'ula nimsheches. It's a continuous thing. In other words, it's like you're always being circumcised. It's not you did it when you were 8 days old and finished. He says that because if David HaMelech, what's the proof? Very simple. David HaMelech put tefillin on that day. So why was he feel naked in mitzvahs? He still did a mitzvah that day. And bris milah he did the way he did when he was 8 days old. So what is he rejoicing about? Why is bris milah different than tefillin? He put on tefillin that morning. So why was it? From there you see the Rogat Shavar says, and the Rebbe holds like that too, that it's a pu'ula nimsheches, means it's continuous. It's not something that happened once and it's over. It's a continuous thing that the person has a bris milah. And therefore David HaMelech was rejoicing. So therefore, because it's a rejoiceful time, you have a bris milah. What?
But is it being in the mikveh a mitzvah?
Not for a man.
Probably was before Shachrit.
Can someone take the food from the Suda and go to his office, wash with the food?
Yeah, it's part of the Sudas mitzvah.
So is that okay?
Yeah, people do that. In fact, people do that. They take if they're in a rush, they'll take the bagel, whatever, and they'll eat it in their office. Now, it's also, but because of this, it's a very interesting thing. It's, huh?
About the food from the Siyam. Someone made a Siyam here last week.
No.
They were asking if they could take the cookie to go instead of eating it here. You have to eat it with the guy that made the Siyam, or you just take it?
No, you're taking it from that Suda. It's not a Sudas mitzvah, by the way, so much. It doesn't have a din of a Sudas mitzvah. But there's, maybe forget what I wanted to say. So therefore, you're not allowed to invite somebody to a bris. It says in halacha that if you invite somebody to a bris, they have an obligation to go, because otherwise you're turning down a Sudas mitzvah. So what the custom is, you inform people. You don't say, I'm inviting you to the bris. You say, the bris of my son is on this and this day and this place. So then you don't have an obligation to go. Even that the world is make that even if they're invited, they don't go anyway. I mean, they still don't go. Another interesting thing is, there's something called the night, okay, let's start earlier. The Friday night after the baby is born is what's called, you have a Shalom Zachar. Why do you have a Shalom Zachar? So one of the reasons for Shalom Zachar is because a child learns the whole Torah within the mother, the womb of the mother, and then he forgets it. So to comfort him over the fact that he forgot all the Torah that he learned, so you make this thing Friday night. So the whole question of halacha, is that called a Sudas mitzvah? Is it not a Sudas mitzvah? It's a whole discussion in halacha. But over there the custom is you don't wash, you just have, cake or beer and bulb, whatever. Different things you have. In addition to that, the night before a bris, you have what's called Wachtnacht. Wacht is Yiddish. Wachtnacht means you're up a whole night. Now it says that unless it's Shabbos, if the bris is Shabbos, you don't need to do Wachtnacht because Shabbos itself is a protection. But let's say a bris is on Tuesday. So Monday night, ideally the father is supposed to be up a whole night learning. In addition to that, there's a custom you bring Jewish children the night before the bris to the baby. They say Shema, they say the 12 psukim, they say Amal Chagoyel, different customs of what they say. Why? And then you give the kids some nash, some treats, and so on and so forth. Why is that? Why is there a concept called Wachtnacht? So it's brought down in Svarim that because bris is such a holy thing, the evil forces will do everything possible that it shouldn't happen. They'll do everything possible it shouldn't happen. So as a protection for the baby, when the father's up a whole night, in fact there's a custom, you say parts of Zohar, you say a whole thing over there that you say the night of a bris milah, and the fact that the kids come to read the Shema, so that actually protects that everything should go well. Friday, if the bris is Shabbos, you don't need to, because again, the Shabbos itself protects the person. So I'm coming to that point. I'll answer your question also. So what happens if somebody didn't do a bris that day? They weren't able to do a bris that day, so you could do it the night after, or other poskim, right? You can even do it a few days later. It's still called the sud of a bris. Now, if a bris is done on a fast day, then obviously you can't have a meal that day. So you make the bris, and then at the end of the fast, when the fast is over, the same thing with Yom Kippur, Tisha B'Av. We had in this show years ago a bris and Yom Kippur, bris and Tisha B'Av. We had fast days, we had all that stuff. But the Suda is done after the fast. You go home and have the meal.
Why can't we have it at night, the bris?
Because the Torah said Bayom. It's Exeris HaKosher. The Torah said Bayom Hashmini on the 8th day.
Not to do with Kivura, blood, and night.
No, I mean maybe that's but the bottom line is the Gemara says Exeris HaKosher, bris has to be before night, and because it has to be before night, it has to be before sundown. Because if you do a bris at night, it's not kosher. So let's say somebody's bris is supposed to be Tuesday, and let's say sundown is 5 o'clock, and whatever, the mother didn't show up, the baby didn't show up, and now it's 6 o'clock Tuesday night. So what do? You can't make the bris at night. It's not kosher. So then you have no choice. You have to push it off to Wednesday and do the bris Wednesday. But every day that you could do a bris and you don't do a bris, you're transgressing a positive commandment of the Torah. The Torah says you have to do bris on the 8th day. Unless if they're not well, it's a whole different story.
Is there a list of in which event we have to have a suda?
What?
Is there a list of in which event you have to have a suda?
Which events? No. Pinyan Aben, as we're going to learn the next day, Pinyan Aben, redeeming the firstborn. Weddings. Those are obligatory su'udas, by the way. Now, if somebody did a bris milah without a meal, they still did the bris. I mean, doesn't mean the bris is not kosher.
Well, the meat would be just a little bit of bread, and it doesn't have to be
There are a lot of times people want to get married, they don't want a big thing. You should know a big thing by a lot of shluchim is people want to get married, they don't want a minyan. They just want the chas and the kala and the parents and the rabbi, that's it. You're not allowed to do a wedding. Huh?
The parents can be the AD?
No, but it's kosher. But I'm saying you need a minyan to do a wedding. It's a Gemara. It's learned out from a pasuk by Boaz and Rus. They had a minyan. You learn out. You can't make a chuppah less than a minyan. I mean, there are certain poskim that say and crazy, but generally speaking, you must have a minyan.
By bris,
No, by bris not. By pinyan aben not. I mean, it's preferred, obviously. It's Now, another interesting difference between Sfardim and Ashkenazim, and that is, Sfardim, based on the Psak of the Rambam, they make a Shehecheyanu at the time of the bris. They make a Shechem. Why? Because it's a mitzvah that comes from time to time. You don't do it every day. But that's what the Rambam holds. And that's what the Bais Yosef writes in Shulchan Aruch, by the way, that at the bris, the father makes a Shehecheyanu. The Ramah writes we don't make a Shehecheyanu, and that's the Ashkenazi custom. Why? Because Tsar di Yenuka. The baby has pain. The baby has pain, and something that has pain, you don't make a Shehecheyanu. In fact, it says the same thing in Hilchos Shechita when the sheikhet shechs the first time. He doesn't make a Shehecheyanu when he does Shechita. It's a mitzvah. He didn't do it before, once a year, whatever. Like, why doesn't he make a Shehecheyanu? And Shulchan Aruch again says, because over there's pain to the animal. That's why you don't make a Shehecheyanu on shoes either. Many people make new clothing, they make a Shehecheyanu. But on shoes, you don't make Shehecheyanu. Why don't you make Shehecheyanu? So it says in Sfarim, the reason is because you have to get the leather, you have to kill an animal. So the animal was suffering, so there's suffering involved. You don't make a Shehecheyanu. Huh? They're not really shoes.
So the jacket's leather?
The pearl Dominic is you don't make on leather.
Why does the Sfardim say Shehecheyanu again?
By a bris? Because it's a simcha. It's another interesting thing by a bris. There's a whole letter from the Rebbe about it, and Poskim discuss this. Are you allowed to anesthesia, local anesthesia on the bris area, that the kid shouldn't feel the pain? You don't find Milah do that, by the way. Why not? Because halacha says the pain is part of the mitzvah. So if you're doing an older person like the Russians, and all that, ideally, some of them, but they really mean it. They say they want any anesthesia. They want to feel the pain, but it's unbearable pain. So then you're allowed to do anesthesia that they should to do the bris. If somebody did do anesthesia on the baby and they did the bris, it's still a kosher bris. But so the pain of a bris milah is different than the pain of shechita, or that's why I don't think that the Sfardim make a Shehecheyanu on shechita. I don't think so. But
They could put the numbing powder after, right?
Yeah, after the bris, they don't put numbing powder. They put powder to stop the bleeding.
Okay.
After it's done already, the pain's over. There's nothing to numb.
No, the pain leaves after that?
Yeah. The pain is only the bris.
1 second.
Yeah, that's it. But it's a chelik of the bris. So therefore the pain is so to speak part of the mitzvah. You can't say it's a pain and therefore you don't do it. Okay, so that's vachnacht, and that's and that's okay. You can do the bris. The suda a different day. Okay, now we'll leave with one last interesting shaila. We know there's a din of what's called zriza makdimim lemitzvahs. Zealous people like to do a mitzvah as soon as possible. We learn now from Avram Avinu v'yashkim Avram b'beiker. Avram Avinu got up early in the morning, and the Gemara says zriza makdimim lemitzvah. There's another concept in halacha that's called reiv am hadras melech. When you have a lot of people, it's more glory for the king. So when you do a mitzvah with more people, it's better. So now the shaila is like this. If I do a bris in the morning, I'm going to have less people, but it's early in the morning. If I do it in the afternoon, I'll have more people. And you can have meat, whatever, it's more expensive. Not necessarily, not today. So the question is, what is better to do? Should I make a bris in the morning with less people or later in the afternoon? So the pearl, even though the halacha is Riza Makdimul Mitzvah comes first, but the Rebbe wants to say in Yisicha, but the meaning is that they do Reivam Hadras Melech too. Machat Shin so Meiser Melech Bebel Mayin Kim Shvela Gal Teir B'Chanan Kashim Gott der Baruch sagt so wie gerebel am